All right, Alex, thank you for so much for coming and supporting the Filipino community at historic Filipino town for this annual celebration. Can you just tell us a little bit about what brings you here today, and do you like anything you see? Did you try any of the food?
Well, I've been here before. I was here in December during the Christmas event here. Wonderful reception here, so near and dear to my community. On our department, we have so many Filipino employees, and Tagalog is one of the big languages. After Spanish and Mandarin, I think probably Tagalog and Korean are like in the top, and so it's an important part of what makes up LA County such a great place. There's all the rich diversity, and this is right here where we got it.
Absolutely. So I wanted to kind of drill down on one of the things that you talked about actually up there, which is to stop Asian hate crimes that are going on. I personally know of many instances where our Filipino homes have been targeted, for property crime, but also we're looking at some violent crime as well. Mm-hmm. So what have you seen as far as incidents in the county, and what are you doing to combat that?
Well, we do know that there's been an uptick in 2021 of hate crime. I want to say it was a 76%, if my numbers serves me right. And that increase is alarming. We are taking positive steps. As you know, we have the Asian Crime Task Force.
Tell me a little bit about that. Is that under your department?
Well, the hate crime task force is one that is focusing exclusively on hate crimes, and we're trying to get people to report incidents and report crimes. Don't chalk it off as I can't do anything about it. No, we solve these cases, and we have about 4 in a row that were serious hate crimes. There were also violent crimes. For example, the robbery of the elderly couple in Rowland Heights in the 9 Market. We got 3 in custody behind it. The same thing when an angry driver, drove through a protest in Diamond Bar. He got arrested. The one who assaulted the clerk in Hacienda Heights, that store, that person got arrested. And the rideshare driver in South End Monde got pistol whipped and robbed. That person got arrested. So we're on these things as soon as they happen. We just need people to report incidents that don't rise to the level of a crime, but they're serious, because those same people are typically the ones that later on are suspects.
And that's a big problem in the Asian community and in the Filipino community specifically, where there's a reluctance to report crimes and say, chalk it up to that's just what happens when you live in the city or live in high density areas. What have you guys been doing to kind of change that culture?
Well, we did a hate crime summit. We had last week at our headquarters, and we had participation from the FBI, from the ATF at the federal level, from the Attorney General's office, from the DA's office, representatives. We invited the consular staff from all the different consuls that are from Asian communities. And so we had good representation, good turnout, and we explained what we can do, how to report hate incidents, the difference between an incident and a crime.
And what is that difference?
Well, an incident is something that could be hate speech, for example, or posting any image that's derogatory to the API community, but it doesn't rise to the level of a crime. And then another thing, which is a big takeaway we found out, is that in California, hate crime is not a crime by itself.
Interesting.
It's an addition to another crime. For example, if the guy that was yelling racial epithets at the protesters in Diamond Bar had not driven through the crosswalk, it wouldn't have been a crime.
Freedom of speech.
Yes, it would have been the act of driving through the crosswalk. We added to additional charge of the hate crime.
So it's almost like a gang enhancement.
It's an enhancement. So we want to make the hate crime a standalone crime in the state of California.
And what is the realistic ability for that to happen?
Well, the legislature right now, they're too busy trying to protect criminals.
Yes.
Their whole push is about not presenting more opportunities for people to be jailed, because they think somehow that's safer, but it's not.
Yes.
It's horrible for the API community. It's horrible for the Jewish community, Muslim community, the Sikh one. The ones that tend to be targeted for hate crimes and incidents is horrible for them, because then we have to rely on there to be a crime attached to it to then be able to do the enhancement. I say BS on that. If there's a federal hate crime standalone, why isn't there a standalone state hate
Absolutely. Federal level it exists, but not in state.
crime. Not in the state.
But I wanted your thoughts on Prop 47. I think, I personally, had my vehicle robbed in Cerritos. And Cerritos, I noticed it was found in Compton 12 days later. So,
Parts of it, I assume.
yes, actually stripped down, but generally it's back in place now. But I got new parts. Definitely my stereo went, and to the tires and a few other things. But what's your thought on Prop 47 and the misdemeanor, that bar being $950? I'm sure it's encouraging crime, right?
I think there are several studies that have shown that Prop 47 contributed to an increase in property crimes. But the problem was that when you pair Prop 47 with a progressive district attorney that doesn't even prosecute the misdemeanor crimes, now you have no crime at all. They just not going to do anything. And that's what's emboldened the criminal community to do these multiple. We've had someone arrested 3 times in one day for grand theft auto.
Wow.
You have the zero bail schedule. All these things that are happening that tells the crooks that there's no consequences. So what are they going to do? They're going to continue, do more.
So San Diego actually reinstituted their cash bail after they
We
saw
did
zero.
too.
Wonderful.
August 1st is when the Superior Court reinstituted cash bail. So it's a slight improvement, but we still have the drama of the district attorney not prosecuting juveniles who commit serious crime, treating them as adults. So right now, the failure rate of the juvenile system, the recidivism rate is just going through the roof because there's no incentive. So now the older gangsters tell the younger, hey, you do the crime here, you take the gun. You're not going to face any consequence. And that's why we see all these crimes just going up.
I want to transition over to human trafficking. I know there's been a lot of, like I just heard in a different county, neighboring county in Orange County, that there are flights coming in before flights are even permitted to land with Chinese people inside those planes, bringing people in and supposedly smuggling people in for human trafficking. What have you noticed in LA regarding this issue?
Well, the governor signed into law a new assembly bill that eliminated the crime of loitering for purpose of prostitution, which makes it basically legalize all the red light districts, which is horrible because in terms of human trafficking, that just almost legalized it. Then you have a district attorney who is not enforcing prostitution laws. They've legalized prostitution in LA County. And with that, all the human trafficking that goes along with it. It's like it's part of the mix. They're going to keep pushing sex workers unwillingly. They've forced into the trade, and they're going to continue trafficking between here, San Diego, Las Vegas.
Have you seen an uptick in that since this?
We saw an uptick during the Super Bowl weekend, which is a historical uptick, but
it was more pronounced this year, I'm assuming.
But now it's more pronounced everywhere, and with eliminating the loitering section now, you see areas on Figueroa, downtown, places in Long Beach, Compton, by the airport, which were traditional red lights. Now it's just more brazen and in the open.
Everywhere.
And the residents that unfortunately live by there, they're at wit's end. Imagine having your driveway littered with condoms. You got kids, and you have people actively engaged in sex right in front of your house.
Absolutely. Or in the homeless tents that are in sidewalks.
Same thing.
So let's transition to that homelessness. What's going on with that? It seems like the problem has gotten worse. I drove through Skid Row the other day, and I said, wow, this is more than I've seen ever before.
Try doing it at 10 o'clock at night. In fact, I wouldn't even recommend it.
What do you see?
It looks like Night of the Living Dead. You have people you could literally be naked, covered in feces, screaming at the moon, walking down the middle of the street, and nothing happens, which is what's bad. In the past, you go to jail, you get cleaned up, go into a psychiatric facility. None of that exists anymore.
And that there's no more of that? I mean, we're funding these services more for the homeless. What's going on?
No, you're paying money to organizations that are not providing the service.
It's not getting to end user.
The homeless industrial complex, they spent $6.5 billion over 10 years. The problem doubled in size.
Amazing.
But the salary of CEOs of these nonprofits quadrupled.
That's a big problem.
The top 10 nonprofits for homeless are making $800,000 a year. That's twice my salary, and I actually run an enormous organization, very complex. I don't make what they're making. and they're a nonprofit. Imagine that.
And what are the solutions to that? I mean, do we need to do audits on these nonprofits? I
Oh,
mean, do we need
the
to,
whole nonprofit sector needs to be cleaned up. It's basically anarchy right now. Anything goes, whatever they can get their hands on in a public contract. There's no oversight. All the attention of the political world is on the oversight of the sheriff. Heck, you can tell where every single dollar I spend, where it goes.
It's almost like a witch hunt against you, while you're actually the good guy trying to solve the problems on the ground.
Because they want to deflect all the attention over here while they're robbing the bank over there. That's
right.
It's by design.
And the whole defund the police movement and BLM, in the summer of 2020. I mean, all these things have been creating this negative perceptions towards law enforcement. What have you seen in LA County that has done, and how do you combat that?
Well, the community loves the sheriff's deputies. They love police officers. Every single community, you go block by block, riders on the trains, they want to see more deputies. They want to see more cops in blue. Mm-hmm. They don't want to see less. But you listen to the politicians, it's the exact opposite. They want to get rid of cops.
The DA you mentioned, Gascon, has been on that agenda. Mm-hmm. And why do you think that recall failed? It's not going to be on the ballot this time around.
Well, if you listen to the critiques of the people doing the recall, that they were incompetent, didn't do their job. But they got more than 500,000 signed, validated signatures. That's a huge chunk of the population. You look at the registrar recorder. Did he have his finger on the scale when he was certifying signatures? And did he do it? I don't know who to believe or who not to believe. I do know that a huge bulk of people want to see him gone, and I don't think he's going to survive. But what is the action of the Board of Supervisors? Let's get rid of the sheriff. And I'm just doing my job. But the one who's not doing his job and everything is falling apart, let's protect him.
It's amazing, right? It's gone upside down. In fact, one of the most powerful cases that I heard is one of the leaders of one of the recall of the city councilmen in Malibu, Venice, Bonin. He's a liberal Democrat, but he said, I really have to recall this guy because he has a school in Venice where his kindergarten where his son goes to. There's homeless encampments in front of that kindergarten, and they're cooking up meth there. And you tried to remove that, but you got basically ixnayed by the city council and other politicians. How can you do your job effectively and serve and protect our community when you have all these people witch hunting you and stopping the good that you're doing?
Well, the LA Times is on that bandwagon right now. They're flat out saying everything they can say about me, and it's all false. Yet the guy that they're trying to prop up, my opponent, they give him a pass when he's been a disaster for the city of Long Beach. He lets Long Beach burn down during the riots because he told his officers to stand down, not to arrest looters, which is insane. And then you look at his history, they didn't do their homework. But you listen to the Times editorial, the guy walks on water. And it's amazing. So it's there's a lot at stake here on this election, and unfortunately, Lord willing, I'll survive. This onslaught of negative press, which has no basis in reality.
Right.
But they're going to fall. The corrupt entities will fall. When I was a young sergeant in patrol on the department, Lee Bach and Paul Tanaka were corrupt, and they were destroying the organization. I spoke out against it. I was retaliated against. My career was killed. But at the end of the day, they were convicted, and now they're convicted felons.
Were vindicated.
I was vindicated. And this, I will be vindicated again.
Because you're standing by the truth.
I'm
it's
standing
really
by the truth in my job.
That.
And you can see, one by one, they're going to start falling.
Give me a laundry list of your achievements so far during your tenure. Because you've had about 3.5 years on.
3.5.
Yeah, so let's hear what's tangibly been done.
And I'll just talk about the things that I campaigned on.
Okay.
Body-worn cameras. Had to fight the board tooth and nail to get it done. But we got it done. They're all out there. They worked. 31% reduction in citizen complaints. That's a success. Kicking ICE out of the jails. Ending the SCAF grant funding where the county was selling undocumented inmate database to the feds so they could be deported, and then turn around claiming to everyone that they're the immigrant's best friend. Oh, the hypocrisy knew no limits.
Wow.
Yes, $122 million from 2003 to 2018. And I was a bad guy for stopping it. No, actually, I did the right thing. See how this works? I didn't even know about that selling out thing.
Until you.
So I called out Supervisor Solis. What was the reaction of the Times and the establishment? How dare he? He used they came up with a term, a misogynistic term. No, she was betraying her own people. So yeah, let's ignore that and see the politics of the
Exactly.
question.
They make you focus in on some minuscule, slight,
irrelevant,
but
the tens of thousands of people they deported more people than Joe Arpaio.
Wow.
Here in LA County. Supposed to be the sanctuary place and the friend of the immigrant community, undocumented, the defender. No, not at all.
Amazing.
They're making money off it. But that was I initiated it, I campaigned on it, I achieved it. And in the process, we established, hey, there has to be a bright line of division. Immigration, federal immigration, they have a job to do.
Right.
They need to do it. They need to secure the border. But they can't be mixed in with local law enforcement because then people don't want to call 911. And that harms local law enforcement ability to do their job. And when I understand this and I pushed this, I enacted it, it worked. Even my conservative critics, when I explained the whole thing, they realized, yeah, you know what, we see it.
Yes.
We understand it now. So I've had a lot of conservative minds turned around and understand, no, both have a job to do, they just can't be together.
Yes, they can't step on each other's toes.
And now, when it comes to diversity, I campaigned on inclusionary policies for the workforce. We did them, we enacted them, and now I have the most diverse sheriff's department in the nation.
And I'm part of that. I'm one of your CAC members, thanks to Peter Ramirez in supporting.
That's a part of it right there. Yes.
So
he's done a wonderful job with his
he's amazing. So tell us a little bit about that for the audience. Tell us a little bit about your CAC and how it's kind of revolutionary, right, for the sheriff's department.
Well,
it's brand new.
Lee Baca had an idea way back in his first term that was decent, but it got corrupted, along with so many other things that happened. And their advisory council was more about self-serving interest in selling badges for campaign, all this stuff. And shame on them. But the concept was good. So when I took office, I said, let's clean up the concept. Let's make sure it has a good governance model, that the people who are in the CSE are there to support the community in every which way possible. And now it's working. Now we've seen that throughout the pandemic, something that we, of course, can't plan on. We had the CSE out there everywhere doing the food drives, doing the clothing drives at Christmas time. And then we got the Center for Family Health and Education joined forces with us to do the vaccination drives. All these different things. The CAC was front and center, working with the community, and that's what it's supposed to be. That was a beautiful thing. So now we have the right model. Again, part of what I campaigned on, part of what we executed in office.
So promises made, promises kept, right?
Up and down, every single thing I campaigned on, I've had a chance to do. A few have been interrupted by politicians, like my Truth and Reconciliation process. The board said, oh, you can't do that, and they passed a motion, which I could have ignored, because they don't have the authority. But I said, okay, have your way. And because they had their way, that means all those wrongful termination lawsuits that could have been settled, pennies on the dollar early on, now have gone to full fruition. I had to pay one guy 9 years of back pay because he was wrongfully terminated 9 years ago. That cost me an arm and a leg. The Truth and Reconciliation process would have discovered earlier on, at least we could have cut the cost down. But that's how.
And why did you let that battle go, Alex?
Well, because there were so many other things going on at the same time. So you know what? Who's going to pay the price ultimately is the taxpayer, and I will remind them that, yeah, you're forcing the taxpayer to pay the bad decisions of my predecessor. And, you know, there's only so many things you can be doing at the same time. So
makes sense. So what's the tangible benefits of the CAC and now that you've done all this community outreach? Because aside from the Filipino community, you have different, you know, for the Chinese community, for the Indian, I mean, all races. What have you seen accomplished from the CAC?
Well, now people understand that when there's a problem or a complaint or an issue within a community, particularly a cultural one, language barrier, whatever, they have a mechanism now to have an issue addressed. It might not be something worth of calling your local sheriff station because it's a crime or something, but hey, we have a concern, so now we have a way to address it, and that's productive. It wasn't there in the past.
Wonderful. And have you actually seen people reporting more crimes and reporting more incidents since?
Yeah,
Because of CSE?
because of the CSE. Heck, even on our campaign, as I'm campaigning for election, we come across information and this is a matter that needs to be addressed with law enforcement. It gets directed towards the department, towards might be Special Victims Bureau, it might be Fraud and Cybercrimes Bureau, like a type of fraud thing. We come across it, now we have an outlet immediately. Okay, go get them, and they jump on it and run with it. So
I love it. Tangible results, man.
tangible result is being responsive to the needs of the community. And we were victims of defunding by the board. They took away 1,281 positions. They implemented a hiring freeze unilaterally. They took away 145 million one budget, 16 million another budget. I started with 101 million in the hole, and I finished last fiscal year's end at 22 million surplus.
Wow.
And what does the Times say? That I can't manage my money.
That's crazy.
They actually said that. They don't know how to manage my money. That I fired the budget staff. In their editorial promoting the other guy, said I fired the budget staff. No, I didn't. I got rid of one person. It was a job created by my predecessor, an assistant sheriff position, which we could not afford to begin with, who had no idea what they were doing. They created a $101 million deficit. And so one of the things I did is let's shrink the overhead. You got to go. They're the ones that know, how it works. They're the subject matter experts. And he did a phenomenal job. And so it was comical that they're trying to defend the out-of-towner, I should say white out-of-towner, that didn't know the job. And my guy, black budget director, Conrad Meredith, his subordinate, Rich Martinez, Latino, and his number 3 is a Filipino, Glenn Joe.
Wow.
Those 3 got it all done. God bless them. They're doing it the right job, but they don't get the credit. And it's kind of sick when you realize that they know what they're talking about, but what they're doing is they're challenging a political establishment that refuses to acknowledge that they're wrong.
And they want to hold on to their power.
Yes.
And not look like they're weak because they made a mistake.
Yeah.
And we all make mistakes.
Oh, yeah, we do.
That's part of,
And there's a racial undertone to the whole thing because it's a decidedly white establishment that doesn't want to acknowledge that they're in the minority.
And very interesting, even for conservatives, you are the right choice because, you, of all the previous sheriffs that were predecessors were more, right-leaning, didn't issue as many CCWs as you have. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I knew that historically CCWs in our department weren't, they made the standard good cause impossible. Unless you were a retired judge or a buddy, or, grew up with a sheriff or something. I thought that's not, it's not realistic, it's not fair. Let's make a good cause standard that's achievable, reasonable. Not that, we're going to be handing out weapons out by the pallet, but an achievable standard. So we made it achievable. So for example, if you own a jewelry store, you transport jewels, God bless,
You should be able to defend yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
Anybody who runs a business
Absolutely.
that does cash deposits at night,
Should
typically
not
restaurant
worry.
owners, we don't have the resources to babysit you. Here, arm yourself so you can protect yourself. Real estate agents showing houses in the middle of nowhere with no access to local law enforcement, God bless. Yeah, Lord knows what you're getting into.
Absolutely.
And things like that. Victims of crime, you got the stalker from hell. All of those made sense. And so we, I think we've issued about 3,600 now.
I know. It's pretty amazing. And that's great. Good citizens should be armed.
And what does the Times do? They try to do a hit piece. They spend months analyzing data and PR requests only to arrive at the conclusion that no laws were broken. All that time and energy. But why don't they do the analysis of George Gascon's policies on juvenile justice?
Exactly.
Why don't they ask of him, hey, where's your data and science about your policies? Because crime is spiraling out of control. There's data now. You got almost 2 years worth of his policies in effect. Where's the data? Where's the science? Show me the results.
Gascon getting rid of the
They want
gang
nothing.
enhancements has been a real issue. Have you
Oh.
seen that on, happening on the ground where the gangs are actually empowered by his
Oh,
tenure?
oh, hell yeah. Getting rid of the gun enhancement, the gang enhancement, treating, a guy could come here, kill all this in the room, only one person died. That's another enhancement. Multiple victims, no, it's just one crime.
Wow.
Yeah. All juvenile crimes treated as misdemeanor, as juvenile, not adult. And they're releasing people straight onto the street as juveniles without treatment, engage in violent crimes, and they're getting rearrested again, and the DA is just pushing everything under the table.
Which areas are most affected? Because I know a lot of people in, say, the beach cities like Manhattan Beach, Hermosa, and Redondo, they're sheltered from this.
Those people tend to be sheltered, and notice they're the ones pushing for all these reforms and rights, because whatever they're ultra progressive. But the people that pay the price are Black and Latino communities that are hardest hit by gang violence and poverty. That's where all the effects are concentrated, but not the decision makers. They're not concentrated there. They're concentrated in gated communities, very wealthy enclaves. Not a single 5 supervisors, not one lives in sheriff's department jurisdiction.
Wow.
That speaks volumes right there.
Absolutely. The hypocrisy is deafening. Next tenure, okay, should you get reelected, what are your plans? I already heard a laundry list of great results. What do you plan to do in your second term?
Well, I got to rebuild the department back up to the strength that it had in 2019. I want those 1,281 positions back. I want to get that hiring freeze thrown out, and I decide when I hire and bring the numbers back up to full strength. I'm going to work hard with whoever the next mayor is and the next board that's seated in December. We're going to build shelter capacity, and we're going to clean up the streets. Plain and simple. We're not going to sit on our hands and say, oh, well, we'll have to wait till we can build $800,000 condos with a beach view. We're not going to build our way out of it. There's smoke and crack. And building up shelter capacity, we can take back the streets, push people into shelters, into mental health treatment, substance abuse treatment. That capacity has to be built up. It's not right now. Which means we need to build a mental health treatment center and tear down Med Central Jail. We can do it. And I'm going to lose some bit capacity of my jail, but it's a trade-off for me because then I have the capacity to treat people with mental health illness in a secure setting and in a non-secure setting at the same time. That's in the big picture. Public corruption continues to rear its ugly head. I've learned more about things that are going on in the last 3 days than I have in probably the last 3 years of scandals that are public. And
last 3 days, what's been popping up?
Oh, things are popping up that you gotta takes time to wrap your mind around it. But just remember when I told back in 2004, I told Bach and Tanaka, you guys are doing wrong. You're gonna hurt the organization. Now I'm in the process of telling the board, you're doing wrong, you're going to hurt the entire county. And they're fighting.
Will they listen?
Well, some steps that we're going to take, I'm going to take actively. Our public corruption unit, they're going to continue to do their job. We'll work with the Attorney General and the feds, and but we're not going to stop. And there's other things that we can take within the department to fight corruption that we're going to take. And so we're going to have our hands full.
Very exciting stuff. Some final words that you want to tell, especially our Filipino audience, and also plug your website where we can, donate to you. I saw your awesome bus, double-decker bus.
Oh yeah, that's
badass.
Yes, that's Taj from Artesia. He does a wonderful job. I don't even know how he drives that thing, but he does. God bless him.
I'm like, am I in London?
Yes. My website is alexvillanueva.org. You can read throughout about my campaign, how to contribute. You can do it online. On social media, you can follow me at Alex4, the number 4 Sheriff, on social media. And on the department side, LACO Sheriff, social media, and LASD.org, the department's website.
Wonderful. And then final thing I wanted you to comment on is, everyone wants to make it about left and right, but I see you fighting an establishment that's not doing things for the people. Maybe say a few words around that.
I can tell you this: when we cleaned out the homeless in Venice, we got Democrats and Republicans start talking to each other and realizing that our local problem is far bigger than who's yelling at who in Washington.
Right.
And with that, all of a sudden, yeah, we might disagree on things, but the bulk of what we face, we actually agree on. So county and city government are failing massively because they only allow the ultra far left to occupy every single position.
Correct.
No other thought or perspective is allowed. So reality is not part of their equation, hence their results are always bad. But my goal as sheriff is to make LA livable again, and I'm going to open up that tent and get more people involved. And I'm going to bring the left and the right together. That's my goal as sheriff, and it is working. It is working, and I've been to events they're all Republican, and they stand up and they applaud, even though I'm a Democrat. I'm trying to get now Republicans to come to Democratic events and have the Democrats applaud a Republican. It's a tall order, but I want that to happen on both sides. Because then when we get to that point, we realize, okay, you know what? We're not playing this game of red team, blue team, because that doesn't mean nothing. It's, the purple team.
Exactly. What an inspiration. Thank you so much for sitting down and chatting with me. And, let's all pray for Alex's reelection and LA to become the shining city on the hill like it once was.
Yes, and it can be again.
Yes, appreciate it.
All right, you got it.
All right. Thank you.